The United States government has a long history of trying to dominate and dominating much of the Middle East, including ripping off resources, especially oil, that should benefit the people of the nations where those resources are located. We continue along that course, with many people still dying as a result, and otherwise peaceful people thrown into chaos, terror, and tragedy. Let's put it all in historical context. In the early 1950s, under the direction of John Foster Dulles, President Eisenhower's Secretary of State, and his brother, CIA Director Allen Dulles, the United States plotted and carried out the violent overthrow of democratically elected governments in Iran and Guatemala. The CIA overthrew the Iranian government to make certain the United States and Britain would control the oil resources of Iran in the face of a threat by Iran's then President Mosaddegh to nationalize those resources for the benefit of the Iranian people. The ramifications of the U.S. belligerence, arrogance, and utter disrespect for democracy in connection with the overthrow of the Mosaddegh government in Iran are still felt to this day, as the Iranian government remains ever suspicious, for good cause, of U.S. actions and intentions in that region. Almost immediately after the U.S.-sponsored coup against the Iranian president, the CIA was approached by the United Fruit Company, whose land holdings in Guatemala were threatened with nationalization by democratically elected Guatemalan President Jacobo Arbenz. United Fruit was informed it would be paid for its property, but that wasn't good enough. In order to continue exploiting Guatemala's resources, United Fruit Company told the Dulles brothers it wanted the United States to replace the Guatemalan government with people who would serve the interests of that United States corporation. The CIA responded with the same worn-out public claims about a communist threat and tried to make its coup against President Arbenz seem like an internal uprising after interviewing people to play the part of the head of that so-called uprising. That coup led to decades of brutal military rule, resulting in the deaths of many thousands of men, women, and children, and terror throughout much of Guatemala. The Reagan administration once again used a trumped-up threat of communism to undermine the Sandinista government in Nicaragua in the 1980s. The CIA drafted a manual for those that organized to help overthrow the Sandinistas, the Contras. This CIA manual taught the Contras how to terrorize the population, including the killing of local Sandinista leaders, in order to turn the people against the government because of its inability to stop the terror. Congress finally prohibited the United States government from providing arms or money to the Contras. Then the Reagan administration, in a perverse illegal project run by Oliver North, arranged for the sale of arms to Iran, of all places, with the proceeds of the sales being illegally delivered to the Contras. These are just a few of the many cruel, anti-democratic activities of a nation that continues to claim to be a beacon of freedom and a champion of democracy. The details are disgraceful, reflecting an astounding contempt not only for democracy, but for fundamental human and civil rights. Let us put in that historical perspective our nation's recent history of atrocities in the Middle East. An illegal war based on a pack of lies, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis who pose no threat whatsoever to our nation. Grotesque torture, for the first time in our nation's history authorized by the highest officials in the United States government, and wholly illegal under international and our own domestic laws. The continued drone killings of hundreds of innocent men, women, and children in at least 4 sovereign nations, creating ever more hatred and hostility toward the United States. We, the people, can help bring about peace by insisting that our nation change its course, demanding that our elected officials choose peace over war, respect for the rights and sovereignty of other nations over empire building and domination, and utilization of our nation's precious resources for personal security, education, and jobs over the waste and destructiveness of the military-industrial complex.